All right guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, we love talking about escapes. So we're gonna get into one of the most difficult positions to get out of, which is north-south. It's very different from other types of top pins because control of the head and shoulders is really not required. It's more about control of the hips. And so what we need to understand is how to change the position so that a lot of times we're threatening to actually move it so that we're gonna look like our bodies are more in a side control versus a north-south, and they're gonna have to change their arm configuration and allow us some inside position. So we'll start from before we even get put in the north-south. Let's just talk about passing. When our partner passes, a lot of times he might get an angle all the way to the north-south position, but my knees are still to my chest, so he ends up grabbing an ankle grip like this. And what he's looking to do is open his elbows to the inside and eventually crash his head to my waist and then start flattening me out in this position. And this is where it's gonna be more difficult for us to get out of. So if we can stop this before it happens, that's great. So like I talk about on the channel, I want you guys to not only retain guard, but I want you guys to be able to attack off of every type of retention you have. So this is a really good opportunity to attack somebody. So when he grabs onto my ankles, what we want to look to do is take one hand off. So I want to come in. If I don't have any space here, I'll go up to his elbow, go down to his wrist, take this one off. And now what I'm looking to do is take my leg that I just freed, I put it into the opposite armpit. And now I grab onto the remaining hand on my ankle, and I'm going to use this to pull my hips in this direction towards the free leg. And I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to shoot my hips high to catch him in a triangle here. We want to try to spin as much as possible so that we already cut this angle and we can start to finish them right here. So again, pretty simple. You just want to drill this a lot so that you guys can do this quickly because we don't want to get into a position where he's already pinning us. So we get here, I'm going to go to his elbow, slide down to the wrist, take it off. I take it off by lifting and bringing my ankle down. Now I bring my ankle to his armpit. I'm pulling on the remaining wrist so I can hang onto it and use it as a vine. I'm going to pull my hips towards his head, swing my leg through, and now we can start lacing up our triangle into a figure four position, attack with arm bars, udigatamis, whatever you want to do. This is a really good option for if your partner hasn't passed you yet. So one more time, we'll do this one fast. So he grabs onto my ankle, I take this off, I go up to here, and go right into the offense. So now that we've talked about a way to stop them from getting into the pin initially, let's talk about ways to actually get out of the pins. So a lot of times what we're looking for is knees and elbows to the inside of their collarbones, okay? So let's say he might have been lower than he was before, but he hasn't pinned me yet. We'll just talk about it from right here, but eventually what we're trying to do with most of these pin escapes is to get to this position, which I'm about to show you, which is where I have my elbows inside of his collarbones, and then I bring my knees inside of the collarbones as well. So my knees and elbows together are keeping space away from me, and now I can start to turn inside of this and get my guard back. A lot of times if we bring our knee all the way through, we can even start to threaten triangles here. They're not super reliable, but it's worth a shot if your opponent is adamant on staying on you once you start turning. But again, what we're looking to do is at any point to get our elbows inside of his collarbones and then bring our knees inside of the collarbones with the elbows. So we bring our knees and elbows together and they're inside of his collarbones. So once I'm here, Jake can put as much pressure on me as he wants. He'll never flatten me out, and I can always start to turn internally and rotate back to a guard position. So we're gonna have to talk about ways to intelligently get here. But that's the gist of what we want to do. So let's talk about one of the most common ones, which would be when Jake has double inside. So we'll talk about all the different variations we have, but Jake has two elbows to the inside. This is the first one, double elbows inside of my elbows. This one's difficult to get out of, obviously. And then he goes to my waist. He could tripod up, so he tripods up like this. This is a really controlling one. He can't attack me here, but he can keep me here for long extended periods of time. The other ones are double one arm out, one arm in. So he has one elbow inside mine, one arm out, and then he has both arms out over top of my shoulders. So all of these are going to require different ways to get to the original position that we're showing, which is this. And I just kind of showed you one there. We'll start from what I think is probably the easiest one, which is where he has both arms over top. So if he goes, go back outside. He has both arms over top like this. This position is, in my view, a little bit easier because we don't need to even change our body configuration. What I'm gonna look to do is bring my hands inside, in between his neck, and just give a small bump so I can start getting my hands in between him and I. Just like this. That's all I'm looking to do. So now my hands are inside and in between his chest and my chest. And now I can start using pendulums. This is really important movement in getting out of north-south. We use pendulums so that we can start to rotate and keep our body from getting flat. We start moving our legs like this in a whipping motion. And as you can see, my shoulder blades are starting to come off the floor. It's starting to become harder for him to hold on to me, and I'm creating little pockets of space to get my elbows inside of his elbows and then into his collarbones, and then I'm gonna bring my knees into the collarbones as well. So I'm moving like this just to make space. As I'm making space, I'm doing violent turns to the side, and eventually I make enough space to get one hand inside. And once one hand is inside, I can make space for the other. And now I'm just trying to connect one knee into the collarbone. Once I get one knee in, he can still press down on me. It doesn't matter. Once I get one knee in, I just use a raising of my shin to make space to insert the other leg. So I raise my shin, and that gives me enough space to get my other leg inside. And now I use a pushing into the armpits to turn my body around and get my guard back and face him again. So from double overs, it's very easy for me to get inside position with my hands. So I just bump a little bit to make inside position like this. I don't have good enough position to start inserting my knees yet, so I need to start using a pendulum to make little spaces. So even if he holds on tight to me, I'm moving around until I create little pockets where now I have an elbow inside of his elbow. Once I have an elbow inside of his elbow, I'm trying to get my other one in, and then I raise just enough to get one knee in. Once one knee is in, that's enough to raise my shin to create a little bit of space between his collarbones and my waist to bring my other knee inside. Once my other knee's inside, I can start facing him and retain my guard. So again, just from outside position, really easy to just bring my hands to the inside. If I can't get any space, I just bump a little bit with bridges just to get my hands inside. I can connect my hands here even. And now what I'm looking to do is just pendulum wildly back and forth, getting my shoulder blades off the mat so that at some point there's gonna be pockets where I can start bringing my forearms flush under his collarbones like this, or into his elbows. If I get into his elbows, it's gonna be easy to lift as well. Even if we get into this position, this is perfectly adequate to start turning into him. So again, he goes back onto it. He's got double over position, so I'm gonna go inside, do a little bump to get my hands in, and now I start penduluming out to the side. Pendulum, pendulum, get one elbow in. Once one elbow is in, I raise it to put the other one in. I put my first knee in. We don't need to get two, we just need to get one. And now I'm raising my shin, bringing the other knee inside, and now I can start to turn and face him whatever direction I want. So that's one of the easiest variations to get out of because of the fact that it's so easy to bring our hands back to the inside through bridges and then penduluming to get the elbows into the collarbones. So now let's talk about a couple other variations which are more difficult and they'll require a little bit of a different approach. So let's say Jake has double inside position. So this time his elbows are both inside mine. What I don't want to happen is that he's really close to me with his hips because then he can follow me really easily. And let's say his knees are closer to me. Yeah, this is much harder to get out of. So what I want to try to do is post on both of his hips like this and bring my body away. Once I've brought my body away, what I'm trying to do is turn our body configuration so that we're in more of a side control than we are a north-south. His grips are great for controlling me in north-south, but they'd be terrible for controlling me in side control. So let's say all we're trying to do is take our legs and pendulum, keep penduluming until we can get all the way to the outside. And I have my hands on his hips, so it's difficult for him to follow me. So I take my legs to the outside. Let's say he keeps his arm position there. And I'm gonna take my other hand across so he can't follow me in this direction. So now he still has the same arm configurations, but he's in more of a side control than he is in north-south. And when we get to this point, what we're trying to do is we're trying to move our hips away from him and then bring one knee into his elbows. So we're moving our hips away and bring one knee into his elbows. And now I can start coming back into this position that we're looking for every time. Even if, and with these ones, a lot of times if I get one knee in, it's gonna be able to slide all the way through as he makes space and then go into a triangle. So, one more time. We'll do this a couple times actually. So we're here, I push away, and then I'm looking to pendulum. I'm looking to pendulum so that we get to a side control position. So I'm moving out in this direction. As I'm moving out in this direction, I can take this hand and put it across his arm so he can't follow me and readjust back to a north-south. I'm putting it outside of his hips so he can't walk this way. And now what I'm looking to do here is try to take my hips backwards so that I can make space between my hips and his elbow, and then I can bring my knee inside. So I bring my knee the outside, insert it there, and now I can hold on to this tricep as I'm coming through. This one goes over top, and I can start connecting my legs over as a triangle.
Let's tilt so they can see that arm.
Yep. Which way?
So, yeah, yeah.
So we're here. I put my hands on his hips. I move away from him just a little bit, and now I start penduluming. I'm penduluming out to the side, and I get all the way into this position. Now once we get here, I take this arm and put it on the other side. Now I'm gonna put my foot on the floor if I need to. I could just shift my hips back if I can do that, but I can also put my foot on the floor to get a drastic distance separation between him and I. And now I'm bringing my knee inside of his elbow, grabbing onto his other arm, and sliding through all the way into a triangle. If you guys watch PGF, Elijah Carlton, Jabroni Grappler is what he goes by. He does these triangle variations a lot where people try to pin him in north-south, and once he gets one knee in, he slides all the way through to a triangle. So one more time here. Even if he's so tight that we can't get any kind of separation between our knees and then insert them into his elbows, we're still gonna separate. And now we're starting to come out. Let's say he's really tight with his elbow position. So if he's really tight, when I start penduluming out, he's actually gonna need to base, because if his arm gets trapped under me, he's gonna roll over. So if his arm's trapped under me and I start rolling, and I come out like this, it's starting to threaten him a little bit. So now what he's gonna do is create a little bit of separation between his elbows and my ribs. So as I'm doing this, I go here and he makes a little separation. Now I get one elbow inside. I bring my knees in, and now I start coming all the way back. And again, we're starting to get our guard retention so we can start to go back into our offensive cycles.
That's probably like what's going to happen most likely if I pull away there. And...
Exactly. So like as we move to a side control as opposed to a north-south, he needs to adjust his hand position, or he's going to be threatened into getting my knees back inside. So we can also show this where if he tries to do the intelligent thing and adjust his hand position, I'm going to put my elbows inside of his elbows on the transition. So as I'm coming out, I go like this, and he tries to move to a north-south. Now he just made space for me to bring my elbow back inside. He did the intelligent thing, but I'm already ready to beat him on the transition. So as he does that, I'm bringing my knees back to the inside and turning back to face him again. So this time, let's show one in, one out. This one is one of the most difficult ones to get out of, because now I can't really just do this where I bring my arms inside, because I don't have double access to that. And I also don't have two hands to put on the hips. So now when this is happening, all you're gonna think about is what one is able to, like which arm is closer to my knees. So when I'm here, I can't reach and grab his hips with this one because he's holding over top of it. So there's no point in me trying to put my arm over here. So what we're looking to do is take this other arm on the outside and connect this one to his hips, across hip posts. So I have my arm like this, flush across both hips. And now I'm still doing that same pendulum. I'm doing pendulums out to the side, and I want to turn this way, because if I turn this way, I can shoot my hips away once we get to a side control configuration, and then I can put this knee into this elbow. So I'm still pendulum, I turn out to this side, and as we stay in this position, now I'm shooting my hips back and bringing my knee to the inside of his elbow. And now he's gonna probably posture up, and I can come back into the inside and get our guard back. So again, let's do it this side. So here, he's got one arm in, one arm out. This is intelligent for him to do. So we put our arm across his hips, and then we start penduluming. And what I'm looking to do is turn and then shoot my hips away and get my knee inside. So I'm getting all the way to this position, and now I'm turning away and getting my knee inside of his elbow. And now we can start turning away from him and go back into our guard. So that's one of the most difficult ones, but just think about it like whatever arm can grab his hips, use that arm to do it, and then turn to that arm's side. So it's gonna be, it looks a little confusing just because he has one arm in, one arm out, so it's not as clear, but when you think of it in terms of which arm does he have on the inside position, you're always gonna use that same side arm of yours to grab onto his hips and then turn your body towards that direction so you can shoot your knees back and then get them inside of his elbows, back to the position that we always want, which is knees and elbows together inside of his collarbones. Last one is if he has a
Body lock.
lock variation. This one is the most controlling, but also the least likely to have you be submitted out of it. He's gonna have to move to something else eventually. So let's say he's more like completely square up on his feet. Yeah, just like this. Same kind of concept here. All we're looking to do is grab onto his hips and keep moving out to a side control. So we're trying to move out to a side control. And a lot of times with the pendulum, since he's so connected to me, if he doesn't move his elbow position at all, a lot of times he's gonna start falling over. So if we're here, I'm moving out to the side. He can actually just roll over if he doesn't ever take his knees out if I get too much pendulum action. But a lot of times, we're gonna get to the side control, and then he's actually gonna loosen up his elbows a little bit because he doesn't wanna be rolled over, and that's where we're gonna insert our knees again. So we're gonna be here, we're penduluming out, pendulum. And now I have enough space where if he doesn't do anything here, I can actually start coming up and raising my level, and we're almost threatening like an octopus guard. We can start to bring our hips backwards and snap him down. This configuration of his arms where he's got a body lock, it helps him keep my hips from moving away. And if he didn't adjust his elbow position because he wasn't worried about falling over, or we never generated enough pendulum action to make him go over, it can be very difficult for me to shoot my hips away and get my knee inside because it's so tight to my body. But it's very difficult for him to hold me down in this position. So he tries to hold me down here. I just raise my hips up and then I shoot them back and I can break open this lock. And now you can see where his arm position is. We can actually start coming up and threatening things like seated katagatames. We can start to attack our opponent. So this position is extremely tight and his elbows are into our hips very tightly. So it can be difficult to get our knees shifted away and then knees into the elbow. But if he's doing that, we can gain height on him to an octopus position. And when somebody has a body lock, it's very difficult for us to move our hips away, but it's very easy for us to bring our hips up and then outwards, and it'll break that lock. And now we actually have a really nice front headlock position. Do you have a question?
No, I was just remembering what you said about controlling the hips. You can't really stop people from rising up.
Yeah. This is like what we talk about on the channel as well. We want to really understand what the different components to control are. A crossface is, for example, not to just make your opponent uncomfortable, but it's to turn their head so that they can't face you and do escapes that come towards you, right? And then same concept applies when he has a body lock or a tight waist around my hips. It's very hard for me to move my hips away, but it's very easy for my hips to raise. And then once they're raised up, I can start shooting them away and break his lock. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is how to get out of a north-south strangle. So let's say Jake catches me being lackadaisical here, he gets me into a north-south strangle. So when he gets me into a north-south strangle, what I want to do is turn my head towards him. So let's actually go the other way.
Yeah.
So he's gotten me into a north-south strangle. If he turns his hip down and he's turning my chin so it's towards the sky, it's really difficult for me to get out. So I need to be able to turn my chin towards him to get out. So what we want to do is take this hand and move it out to his head and then onto his, sorry, there we go. So we put our hands together on his head and then we're starting that same pendulum action. And we're going to eventually, on the downswing towards the right, I'm going to turn into him, make space in my arms, and turn my head. And then we can start coming out of the position. So one more time, guys. The problem with the north-south strangle is if I can't get my chin towards him. And it's very difficult if I just try to do it on my own with no frame. But what we don't want to do is bring my hand inside first, my outside hand, and then he just pushes it by. And now I have no chance of doing this. So what we want to do is push on his head first with the outside hand, and then bring this one in, connect. We have a frame, and we start penduluming. We pendulum all the way to the right side, and we turn our head so that we can free our head and chin from the alignment that he wants. So this is a really, I hope this will be like an exhaustive list for you guys to get out of north-south, and hopefully it's very helpful for you guys to get out of this position, because it can be a position where you're held for long, extended periods of time, and if you don't know how to intelligently get out, you can really burn a lot of energy trying a lot of different inefficient ways to get out and ultimately get subbed because of the fact that you've used much more of your energy than your opponent has being on top and basically doing nothing. As always, this is Big Jake, Eddie, Crash and Flow BJJ.